And with the Sunday night news on BBC One, Clive, Myrie.
At 10, the Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, says he's disappointed after being blocked by Labour's governing body from standing for a seat in Parliament. His supporters say the move prevents him eventually mounting a leadership challenge against Sir Keir Starmer. Labour says that's not why he's blocked. Is the party heading for civil war? Chris Mason will give us his take. Our other top story tonight, tributes and mounting anger in Minneapolis after another killing by immigration officers.
Thousands more people have been out on the streets in protest, and tonight we'll use footage to piece together exactly what happened here yesterday.
It's claimed King Charles's concerns over Donald Trump denigrating NATO troops fighting in Afghanistan were communicated to the White House. America's deep freeze. 23 states declare weather emergencies as a massive winter snowstorm sees temperatures plunge. And here, after Storm Ingrid battered the Devon coast, we report on the big cleanup. Hello to you. The Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, says he's disappointed after being blocked by Labour's governing body from standing for a seat that's currently vacant in Parliament. He had hoped to become Labour's candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election, but despite promising to back the government and not undermine it, he's now been excluded. Mr Burnham is seen by some as a potential leadership rival to Sir Keir Starmer, but Labour says blocking him has nothing to do with that. Its decision simply avoids the unnecessary costs of having to run a mayoral as well as a by-election campaign. Well, Chris is here. Competing factions, it seems, Chris, and a Prime Minister trying, it seems, to show strength.
Yeah, this was a moment, and it was a crunch point that was coming. And in many senses, from the Prime Minister's point of view, Clive, it was sort of heads you lose, tails you lose. Because if you allow Andy Burnham to go ahead and he becomes the candidate and he wins the by-election, neither of those things were guaranteed, by the way, but in that scenario, it's possible to imagine a matter of months later some sort of leadership challenge, potentially. On the other hand, if you go for the outcome chosen today, then you get this kind of exercise in brute power from Downing Street and those loyal to the Prime Minister, which does also simultaneously illustrate how they perceive their own weakness. And all of this done on a Sunday morning with people staring into their laptops on a Teams call. This was a virtual meeting that happened today. You know, a Prime Minister in their pomp who didn't just have a big majority but were really popular would be able to welcome the return of someone like Andy Burnham because they wouldn't perceive them as a threat. And it tells you a lot about how the Prime Minister perceives himself and how the party perceives him, that he felt that this was the better of the two options.
All right, Chris, stand by. More from you in a moment because we're going to get Damien Grammaticus's look at the events of a high day for Labour.
Behind the smiles, ambition and rivalry. For Keir Starmer, the move to block Andy Burnham is a blunt, risky political power play. The official reason, if Burnham becomes an MP, he'd have to step down as Manchester's mayor. But Labour's leadership isn't interested in an unnecessary, expensive election for that job.
The Mayor of Manchester, of Greater Manchester, was elected for a 4-year term. He's halfway through that term now. So we're not going to go back and ask the people of Greater Manchester, over 2 million of them who are entitled to vote, to have to elect somebody else to complete the next 2 terms, because we can select a different candidate for the Denton and Gorton by-election.
Burnham's response, he's disappointed by the decision and concerned about its impact on important elections ahead. Seeking to sound like he was not stoking divisions, he said, "We are stronger together, let's stay that way." But then complained the media had been told the decision before he was. Tells you everything you need to know about the way the Labour Party is being run these days. Labour sources said they'd tried to call him, but he hadn't answered. Before becoming leader, Keir Starmer had said the ruling NEC should not impose candidates. Today, he was one of 8 out of 10 members who voted to block Burnham.
The ramifications through the entire movement are seismic. And here we have a superb politician in Andy Burnham, with immense experience and popularity, and yet the Prime Minister, the leader of the Labour Party, has actually cast a vote against a Labour candidate who would undoubtedly have won this by-election.
Andy Burnham had said he was seeking to stand for Gorton and Denton to prevent populists in Reform UK winning the seat. Some there today wanted him as candidate.
Andy Burnham outstrips Reform any which way round in my eyes. I think he's just got his head screwed on the right way. He's a decent bloke.
Even though I'm not a big Andy Burnham fan, I just think you should give him a chance, to be honest with you. I really do.
Yesterday, Burnham tried to allay the leadership's fears that he wanted to become an MP again in order to be able to challenge Keir Starmer for the leadership. If Labour now loses the by-election, some think the Prime Minister may be vulnerable.
If it's a bad result for Labour, I think there might be a challenge. It's regrettable because we don't need that right now.
Keir Starmer has asserted his authority. He's moved to stop one possible future challenger. The two others lurk in waiting, with difficult electoral tests ahead. Daniel Grammaticus, BBC News.
A day of high drama for Labour, but where is the party now, do you think, tonight, Chris?
Well, it depends who you ask, which tells you something about the row it has provoked internally. Look, it's undeniably true that if Andy Burnham had been the candidate in this by-election, there would have been psychodrama, it would have been a soap opera, it would have been a circus, it would have been all of those things and more. And the calculation in Downing Street is better have a storm now than allow Mr Burnham to make the political weather for months. But it's also worth pointing out that this is the second time in just a couple of months that either the Prime Minister or indeed those acting on his behalf or at least loyal to him have acted in a way to try and, as they would see it, kind of put in a box potential rivals. We saw it with Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, before Christmas, with lots of briefing about him. Downing Street eye his ambitions with suspicion. And now we have this as far as Andy Burnham is concerned. Interestingly, Mr Burnham on social media in just the last hour suggesting that him not being the candidate in this by-election heightens the likelihood that Labour lose. And so what's interesting there is you have both sides in this Labour row talking about what they see as the threat of reform. The threat of reform in a by-election in the mayoral race, if Andy Burnham had to stand down from that role, the threat of reform in the by-election. Tells you a lot about how Labour see their rivals, or in particular their big rival at the moment, Reform UK.
Indeed. All right, Chris, thank you. Chris Mason, our political editor there. Now, the family of a man killed by federal immigration officers in Minneapolis has called for the truth to be told about their son. Alex Pretty was shot during a confrontation yesterday. There are conflicting accounts of the moments before his death, with tensions in the city running high for weeks after immigration agents had previously killed a woman protester. Well, Tom Bateman is live in Minneapolis for us tonight. Tom.
Clive, the protests today have remained largely peaceful, but at the same time we have seen the rhetoric escalate between the Democrat-led authorities in this city and state and the Trump administration in Washington. As for these people, they have largely wanted to come out to pay tribute to Alex Pretty, and a warning that my report contains video of the moments leading up to his death that you might find disturbing. Mourners have been returning to the spot where Alex Pretty was killed, the second American shot dead by immigration officers in a month in Minneapolis. They lay claim to his legacy in what has become a battle with the Trump administration over both values and narrative. Tonight, the state's Democrat governor, Tim Walz, appealed to the country to choose.
I've got a question for all of you. What side do you want to be on? The side of an all-powerful federal government that can kill, injure, menace, and kidnap its citizens off the streets? Or on the side of a nurse at the VA hospital who died bearing witness to such government?
But the man now known on the streets for fronting Mr. Trump's deportation drive was doubling down.
I would implore upon any individuals, whether they're anarchists, rioters, or anyone else that thinks it wise to go into a law enforcement scene to disrupt, to delay, is to don't do that.
Several videos show the moments leading up to Mr. Pretty's death. pushed and pepper-sprayed and wrestled to the ground. Agents then appeared to disarm him of a handgun, which police say he had a permit to carry, before immigration agents shot him multiple times. Alex Pretty was 37, an intensive care nurse who treated sick military veterans. His family says the administration's version of him is totally untrue.
He cared about people deeply, and he was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and throughout the United States.
In the hours after he was killed, agents fired tear gas to disperse crowds. And all this only a mile from where 37-year-old Renee Good was shot dead by an immigration agent 2.5 weeks ago.
Alex Pretty! Alex Pretty!
Alex Pretty's name is added to hers, being memorialised by those who vow to resist. What went through your mind?
It was scary, it was terrifying for the people that were supposed to protect us, for border control to kill people in front of our eyes. That's something that no one can watch.
When Renee Good was killed, the Trump administration sent hundreds more immigration officials to this city. They want ICE out. But so far, this is a story where tragedy has been followed only by further escalation. A call for justice here faces the full counterweight of the Trump administration, accusing a city of inciting an insurrection. Divisions laid bare in blood, and Minneapolis mourns again. Tom Bateman, BBC News, Minnesota.
Well, BBC Verify has analysed videos of the shooting from multiple angles, piecing together a detailed picture of what happened. Rose Atkins' report contains footage which, again, you may find distressing.
The first video we have of Alex Pretty, he's in the road, holding a phone and talking with a federal agent. The officer pushes him, and he steps backwards. Kristi Noem is US Homeland Security Secretary. This is her account of why Alex Pretty died.
An individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently.
But in this video, as in others, Alex Pretty had nothing in one hand, a phone in the other. We see two people interacting with an agent. We then see an agent push one of those people, then push the second person. Alex Pretty steps between them and the agent and is pepper sprayed. He's wrestled to the ground by a number of agents. He's on his knees, bent over. His hands are on the floor and he's struggling against being held down. One agent repeatedly strikes in the direction of his head. And take note of this agent. He has nothing in his right hand, reaches down and removes what appears to be a gun from Alex Pretty's waistband. Then he steps back, holding the pistol, which appears to match this image shared by the authorities. Carrying this type of gun is legal in Minnesota with a valid permit. The police say they believe Alex Pretty had one. Less than a second after the gun is removed, an agent fires the first shot. As Alex Pretty lies motionless, further shots are fired while agents are standing clear of his body. In total, 10 shots were fired in 5 seconds. In all of these videos, we don't see Alex Pretty holding a gun. But once more, we have seen an American killed in the street by federal agents, followed by the Trump administration making claims about what happened.
The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, has told the BBC he's grateful to King Charles for his intervention in the row over Donald Trump's comments, which seemed to denigrate the role NATO troops played in Afghanistan. The Sun has been reporting that the King's concerns about the President's remarks will pass to the White House. Nick Johnson's live at Buckingham Palace for us now. Nick, just tell us how all this unfolded.
Well, Clive, let's go back to Thursday and President Trump's interview with Fox News, in which he accused NATO troops in Afghanistan of staying a little back, a little off the front lines. Now, those remarks were met with outrage by politicians of all spectrums here in the UK, as well as consternation and renewed heartbreak from families and veterans. We understand the Prime Minister and the President then had a conversation, and shortly after that, the President posted that much more conciliatory message on social media in which he described British soldiers as great and very brave. Now, the BBC understands that the King's views on this matter were communicated privately to the President through the government and diplomatic channels. Now, we don't know what the King said, but he is Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He's also a dad of 2 sons, both of whom were in the military. Prince Harry, of course, served in Afghanistan. The King is also someone that the President greatly admires. The President has had those 2 unprecedented state visits here, and it seems at least that they've enjoyed each other's company. The King, of course, is due to visit the President in the US as well at some point this year. There's every possibility that that very much played on the President's mind. Clive.
All right, Nick, thanks for that. Nick Johnson there at Buckingham Palace. Now, nearly 1 million households and businesses across America face power outages due to a major winter storm, which is described as life-threatening. The southern states of Tennessee, Texas, Mississippi and Louisiana are worst hit, but 140 million people all the way up to Canada are in the storm's path, with 40% of America's population under weather warnings. The National Weather Service says dangerously cold winds and heavy snowfalls of nearly 0.5 metre are expected as the bad weather sweeps north. Well, let's get the very latest from Helena Humphrey, who's live in Washington for us now. Helena.
Well, Clive, this is an absolutely massive winter storm stretching right across the country. In some places, we're seeing snowfall today of over 1 foot. But the real worry, those extreme temperatures in Louisiana. 2 people have died from hypothermia. And in many places, a state of emergency has been declared as this storm continues. From coast to coast, much of the United States is coated in snow and ice. From New Mexico to New York, all the way up to Maine, more than half the population is facing a severe winter storm, the likes of which haven't been seen for years.
This is certainly a rare storm.
The advice to millions under extreme weather alerts: stay inside, as those daring to venture out are met with treacherous conditions.
Do not get on the roads. I did a full 360 in an all-wheel drive vehicle.
And the danger doesn't end there. Officials are warning of life-threatening conditions, with hypothermia and frostbite able to take hold within minutes. It may look calm, even beautiful, but it's the extreme cold that really gets to you, with forecasters warning that this Arctic blast could lead to damage rivaling a hurricane. In southern states, that damage is already being felt. Downed power lines mean more than 1 million customers are without electricity, leaving some with no way to heat their homes. Even eastern states, battle-hardened against extreme weather, are struggling.
An Arctic siege has taken over our state and many other states across the nation. And the snowstorm we've been expecting is now underway, but it is brutal, it is bone-chilling, and it is dangerous.
In New York and other major cities, supermarket shelves have been stripped bare as residents stock up on supplies. Travel has ground to a halt, with more than 10,000 flights cancelled nationwide. And in Washington, the White House is living up to its name, from where the president will have to survey the storm response, as forecasters warn that the bitter cold could bite across much of the United States for days to come. Helena Humphrey, BBC News, Washington, D.C.
86 people have been arrested on suspicion of aggravated trespass for allegedly breaching the grounds of Wormwood Scrubs Jail in West London. The Met Police say those detained were protesting in support of a Palestine Action prisoner on a hunger strike. The Ministry of Justice described the demonstration as completely unacceptable, but insisted prison security hadn't been compromised. The Home Secretary will tomorrow outline some of the biggest reforms to policing in England and Wales in well over half a century. Shabana Mahmood's white paper includes cutting the number of police forces in England and Wales by around 2/3, from 43 to 15. Creating a national police service equivalent to the America's FBI to tackle organised crime, terrorism and threats from hostile states. And there are proposals giving the Home Secretary the authority to sack failing chief constables. Shabana Mahmood says the changes are designed to strengthen policing.
The purpose of my reforms is to take all of those national responsibilities, like Sussex, for example, do all of the country's road policing. Well, they should worry about the people of Sussex. Take all of that into the national police service so they do the things that have to be done at a national level, like counter-terror policing, like going after serious organised crime. And then you have regional forces that within them have local police areas whose one job and only job is to police their local areas.
Well, Daniel Sanford is with me. Radical changes, what difference do you think they'll make?
Well, I think if these changes go through, what everyone's going to see, or almost everyone's going to see, is a change to their local force, because county forces are going to simply disappear, merge with neighbours and form these larger regional forces. So for many people, that will be the most significant change. What the government are saying is by doing that, they're hoping that local policing will become really local. So officers in your town or district will be focused on everyday crimes like antisocial behaviour, shoplifting, burglary, mobile phone theft, and then more specialist groups within these regional forces can then concentrate on the complex investigations like murder. Then she's proposing this National Police Service under a National Police Commissioner, which is going to be a merger of the National Crime Agency and counter-terrorism policing. And that really will be something that looks a bit like America's FBI for the first time. So they'll be using really specialist skills to tackle things like organised crime, terrorism and threats from hostile states. And they're hoping that they'll do that better as well. But I think the big question in all this is whether this will happen at all, because some of these changes are so big, they're going to take more than 2 or 3 years, and so they might not happen before the next general election. So it's going to need the party or parties that win the next election to support these plans in order for them to be taken to completion.
Sure. All right. Daniel, thank you. Daniel Sanford there. There's a big clean-up in Devon in the aftermath of Storm Ingrid in Teignmouth. Part of a Victorian pier was washed away in Friday's appalling weather. And further down the coast, homeowners in Torcross have been trying to patch up their homes before more heavy rain arrives tomorrow. From there is Johnny Rutherford.
This is when the storm enters your home. Properties at Torcross felt the full force of Ingrid.
It's devastation when we got here. The sea was breaking over the house. The front had all gone, and it was just washing all the furniture to the back of the house.
Most of the properties along the seafront here at Torcross, that's about 20, have been affected by the big waves. And you can see many have actually got really badly damaged. And if you look, you can see even the safety glass here is actually been bent over.
The waves were crashing over the top of the house, and outside here it was coming about 2 to 3 foot up the sea wall.
It was the worst I've ever known it. I've never seen the devastation of the village like that. Really quite frightening.
The road that leads to the village is closed as the waves wrecked that too.
I've never seen that much of the sea defences exposed. It's took a bit of hammering.
It's calm this evening, giving everyone a chance to dry out. For now. Johnny Rutherford, BBC News, Torcross.
Thousands of animal lovers have queued at a zoo in Japan to say goodbye to the country's last 2 giant pandas before they leave for China. The twins, Lei and Xiao Xiao, were born in Tokyo in 2021 to parents on loan from Beijing. Giant pandas typically return home when loan agreements end, but their departure comes as relations between Tokyo and Beijing continue to deteriorate. And for the weather news now, and Elizabeth's here. Hello.
Hello, Clive. Thank you. Well, there's been some better news, actually, weather-wise, for some areas that have seen some very wet and windy conditions over the past few weeks. So parts of Devon, Cornwall, Western Wales saw the best of the sunshine today. There's been some respite, but it's all coming back, looking very unsettled as we head through next week for all parts of the UK. It's going to be wet and windy. There'll even be some hill snow towards the north, where it's starting to feel colder again. It's going to be a chilly night tonight too. There's plenty of cloud around. It should stay mostly dry, but still those showers, the hill snow across the Grampians, the Cairngorms there. Where we've seen today's brightness out towards these western stretches, then there could be a touch of frost perhaps into tomorrow morning. It is a colder start to the day, but it's a very cloudy one for many of us, and there'll be a few spots of drizzle too from the thickness of the cloud, but most of us will stay dry. Again, there'll be a smattering of hill snow, some snow flurries, across Aberdeenshire, and you've noticed rain into Northern Ireland later on through the afternoon. There'll be some heavy downpours of rain here and also across these western stretches of Wales and southwest England by the time we get to the end of the day, with strengthening southeasterly winds too. Let's take a look at that deep area of low pressure. Then it continues to roll its way further northwards and eastwards across the UK on Monday night into Tuesday. That's when we're going to be seeing the hill snow over 200 to 300 metres, and that just continues through Tuesday too. There'll be gales, gusts of wind of over 60 miles an hour towards Irish sea coast. Plenty of heavy rain. It could lead to some localised flooding. It is not the greatest day of weather. There'll be showers packing in behind those main fronts as well. A quieter looking day of weather on Wednesday, but then the rain returns as we head through Thursday and the rest of the week. There's more on the BBC Weather app. Clive.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you. Elizabeth Rizzini there. That's it. Now it's time for all the news where you are. Have a peaceful night.
Thanks, Clive, and welcome to BBC London. Good evening, I'm Wendy Hurrell. 86 people have been arrested at Wormwood Scrubs prison after a protest yesterday evening police say was in support of a Palestine Action prisoner on a hunger strike. One campaign group, Prisoners for Palestine, has accused the police of a wildly disproportionate response. Barry Caffrey sent this report from West London earlier today.
The protest was in support of 22-year-old Umar Khalid, who has been on hunger strike for the past 17 days. He is in custody awaiting trial for alleged offences relating to a break-in which took place at RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire, which the group Palestine Action claimed to have carried out before it was banned by the government last year. He denies the charges. Police said the protesters blocked prison staff from entering and exiting the prison, threatened police officers, and some of the protesters managed to get into a staff entrance. Officers arrested 86 people on suspicion of aggravated trespass. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Justice said at no point was prison security compromised. They said while they support the right for people to peacefully protest, reports of trespass and threats being made against staff and police officers were deeply concerning. It called yesterday's action totally unacceptable.
Almost 20,000 court cases are waiting to be heard in London. It's the fastest growing backlog in all of England and Wales, and this can have a devastating impact for people waiting for their case to be heard. Helen Drew has spoken to one of them.
Christina experienced sustained domestic abuse from her ex-partner over a period of 23 years, including repeated physical violence. A few years ago, he was sentenced to weeks in prison for assaulting her son. He later returned to prison again. The court cases spanned nearly a decade, the longest taking a year to be heard.
In that 12 months, you cannot focus on your life. This takes over your life, especially when it involves children as well. It makes you feel worthless.
Figures given to us by the Criminal Bar Association show nearly 19,000 cases are outstanding in London, with the backlog rising by 24% in the 12 months to September 2025, faster than anywhere else in England and Wales. The Courts Minister is the MP for Finchley and Golders Green.
We've committed £450 million to our courts. We've increased legal aid for criminal solicitors. We're creating pathways to create more posts for barristers. We've put on the table £34 million for advocates. But as you say, that is going to take time to filter through, to rebuild that workforce. And that is why we asked Sir Brian Leveson to come up with a blueprint for court reform to bring down the backlog.
The Criminal Bar Association told us that the backlog situation had been improving in London. But since Labour came to power, the backlog has started increasing again, blaming factors including caps to sitting days and a decision to use London's courts for cases from elsewhere. Helen Drew, BBC London.
The weather now with Linda Ludlow.
Hello, good evening. The unsettled conditions continue throughout the week. Next week, we are going to see a drier day tomorrow, but mostly cloudy and some rain moving in from the west later. For this evening and overnight, we see the front fragment as it goes into more southerly easterly direction throughout the overnight period, but we are going to see a little bit of light rain and drizzle on that for a start. Drier further north and mainly cloudy skies for most overnight tonight. Temperatures dropping a little bit cooler than we've seen in previous nights, down to 3 or 4 degrees under a light southeasterly wind. For tomorrow morning, there's still a bit of low cloud, mist patches further north, a few brighter spells and some clearances. We're moving further north throughout the day, but not for long as we see the cloud invade from the west into the afternoon, giving us a cloudy to overcast end to the day. Temperature highs 8 or 9 degrees before we see this rain band move in from the west, giving us a wet night overnight Monday into the early hours of Tuesday. Clears through to be drier later Tuesday. Bye for now.
That's it for some bedtime reading. Find out on our website which native bird could come back to Dagenham for the first time in centuries. Good night.